Is the new Razer Viper V3 Pro the Logitech G Pro Superlight killer? Well, I'm going to give you that comprehensive breakdown, so hopefully you can make that decision for yourself. And just to be clear, before we dive into this test, I am using the original Superlight, not the G Pro Superlight 2. I could not stand that new one. The optical switches on 1 and 2, again, I just couldn't stand them. They were too heavy. I didn't like it. So again, this is the original Superlight, but at the core, pretty darn similar. So first off, and most importantly, we're going to take a look at the shape, and we're going to take a look at some raw measurements here, not just the numbers that are pasted on the websites, because you all know they're doing their width from the rear end, some are doing them from the mid. So again, we want some of those raw measurements to see the difference here. So let's go on and get this, and we're going to take a look at the length of both mice first, measure them from the same spots, from that tail end right to the front of the buttons up there. And as you can see, this is the Superlight right there. So now we are from the tail end to the front on the Superlight. Now let's go ahead and get the Viper here. And their buttons are a little bit different. So let me go on and pull this out a little bit here. And we'll get that measurement from the tail end up to the buttons, as you can see. Now let's go on and get that bottom width. I'm talking the very bottom width here. At the very bottom of the mouse, you can see the Viper right there. Now let's get the very bottom of the Superlight right in that midpoint. And again, this is the very bottom midpoint right here, as you see there. Now let's flip it over and get the top of that midpoint right over here on the Superlight. Let's get the top of the midpoint on the Viper right below the buttons there. I can already tell you, just doing this measurement, I can catch myself stretching our, what do they call this thing? I forget. Anyways, our measuring tool here to feel it stretching out every time I come over to the Viper. Now, midpoint right on the sensor, going through the buttons right to the midpoint of the mouse. Here is our Superlight. Now let's go on over to the Viper V3 Pro. You can see that is that midpoint there. Now let's go to the back. I'm talking right back by that back skate. Can you guys see that? You're getting a little bit of glare. There's that back midpoint. And then the back midpoint on the Superlight. Oh, I had to pull that out a little bit for the Superlight, actually. You can see that measurement right over here. And the last measurement I want to take a look at on both mice is going to be the front flare out here. So we're going to look at the upper flare out first off. Right here, so you can see that on the Viper V3. And then let's go on and get the underside as well. Sorry to do so many here. It's probably hard to remember all these numbers as I flop through. There's the lower flare out. Now let's do the upper flare out on the G Pro. Right here, you can see that. And now we'll flip it around and go to that lower bit right there on the G Pro Superlight. Now we're going to go ahead and get the infrared test here to get that heat signature across it. Now, of course, this is going to depend hand shape, hand size out there, and of course your grip style. But again, talking my grip style here so you can see the difference. Number one, we'll kick it off with the Razer Viper V3. And you can do a lot with this mouse, but what I catch myself doing more is a relaxed claw. That's kind of what I catch myself with this. Pulling it back into my palm a little bit. I definitely don't pull it into a palm like I do with the Death Adder. Can then dance it around a little bit here. Flares do hit me a little bit on the back end, but again, I'm going to keep it in my traditional type of grip. Again, that relaxed claw, my fingers sometimes rest down, sometimes come up, so we'll just dance it around a little bit, pull it underneath the camera, and then I'll remove my hand. So you can see my finger going right up over there. Let me lift it up on the back end. You can see I have it filling out right back here by the Razer logo, not down on the rear end by any means. Oh, over here on the back side a little bit. So you can see it's kind of on that back end of the hump, but not the entire hump. Definitely right back here on that Razer logo. Now let's go in and get the Logitech G Pro Superlight. And I can just tell you, one-to-one, going from this mouse into this mouse, I can feel that hump a lot more prominent up top here, where I had to stretch it out as well, but it's almost making my fingers kind of rest on it up there automatically. When over here, I feel like I can lift it up a little bit. We all know the original Viper was a little bit slimmer, a little bit lower. Coming over here to the G Pro Superlight, feels a little bit more egg-like, right? Definitely a little bit more bulbous in the middle. So let's get that heat to transfer here. I'm going to take my hand off, and you can pretty much see, you see some of my fingers right up here on that midpoint going over. You see that heat signature going up there a little bit. As far as the hump on the back, pretty much centralized, right in the middle, nothing over on the side by any means. The biggest thing I want you to see is where my fingers, again, are kind of spreading and going across up there, just resting from this heat signature all the way up to the front. Now we're going to go ahead and take a look at the build of these mice, and I want to clear something up here. As you all know, I do have a tighter grip, a bigger hand. I like bigger ergo mice, and what I do now in my videos is I pull out the force gauge meter so I can press into the product here, and you can see for yourself how much force is getting pressed into it before there's any flex or anything, or forbid one of these mice break on camera here, right? Because everybody's going to have a different grip, right? Some will be tight, some will be incredibly loose, different fingertip, or you're engulfing the mouse a little bit more. That's why I pull this out. And no, I don't think a lot of us are going to squeeze the mice up to 14 pounds. Again, I just want to show you where that weak point is, because me as a reviewer, I don't use these mice as long as many of you probably will, right? So hopefully this just makes it a little fair. Anyways, the G Pro Superlight, let's kick it off with that. Pulling it over to the side here. I am not getting any flex whatsoever. The Superlights have always been built incredibly good all the way around, even every side, not one bit of frame separation or flex at all. As far as the bottom, I do get, right when I get around 6 pounds, I start flexing on the bottom. Of course, you're not going to be pressing your mouse on the bottom right there, so that really doesn't matter. Coming over here to the Viper, same thing. Oh man, I will tell you what, this happened to me in my main review as well. It just slid off, and we're going to talk about that coating here in a second, but anyways, pressing in, same thing. It's incredibly solid all the way around, but holy smokes, it really, getting them one to the other, incredibly slick. We'll talk about that coating, but all the way around, very solid. On the bottom of this mouse, I can get up to, again, probably right around that 8 pounds, 10 pounds, and I start flexing on the bottom. But at one point where we're getting flex on either of these mice is the bottom, but who really cares? Because again, you're not pressing your mouse down there. Now let's go ahead and talk more about the coating on these mice. They feel very similar. Neither of them are chalky or textured by any means. They're butter smooth. But one-to-one, now I have used a Logitech a lot more than a new Razer Viper. I've been using this one for, I don't know, maybe right around 2 weeks or so, nonstop. So I don't know if I can say it's heavily used yet, but it feels a little slicker. It really does. When I come over here to the Logitech, it almost has that, I don't want to say soft rubber coating because it's not like that, but it's incredibly weird. Hand to hand right here, using them, the Logitech one just feels grippier. It's weird. If you have them, if you have both of these mice, take them and let me know if I'm crazy down in the comments. But yes, the Logitech one does feel grippier, but both of them feel, again, they got that soft texture, just very smooth across both of them. That's interesting. Now let's go and take a look at the weight of both of these mice. And again, I am using the original G Pro Superlight, not the Superlight 2. I believe the Superlight 2 is maybe 4 or so grams less. I'm not sure. I used a full puck on the bottom as mine as well here. So slapping on a scale, we're getting 63 grams. I believe the 2 is, man, I forget, maybe low, right at 60s or high 50s. Let's go and pop that puck out and just see what we get with that off. We're getting right at 60 grams. Okay, so coming over to the Viper V3 Pro, we're getting right at 54 grams on the bottom. Again, you do have those bigger feet. And I think where you're seeing some differences as far as that weight, because they're both incredibly lightweight and balanced incredibly well. So again, even talking the original Superlight, it feels very light. I don't think you really need to go much lighter than this, you know? But you got that on and off switch over here on the Superlight. Over here on the Viper, you just have that button. And that is one thing Razer stated, that's how they save some weight, is just going with a button to press down rather than a switch. Now I'm going to give you a quick sound test of both of these mice. And what you're just looking at right there is my ambient sound level of my room. And again, original Superlight here. The new one uses optical switches, which I could not stand. Oh my gosh, they were crunchy. They were incredibly heavy. I couldn't stand them whatsoever. So again, we're using opticals over here on the Razer. These are the Omron still, I believe. Anyway, let's take a quick listen. Now, way more important than the sound test of the buttons on these mice, I want to talk about them because they're significantly different. Starting with the 1 and 2, looking over here on the Logitech, I'll press it down And you can see it's almost right down to the shell. I got minimal play right there. Coming over here to the Razer one, if you can see it since it's black, but I can press it down and I have a little bit of bounce in there. That's both of them, 1 or 2. So click, and then I have all that extra play. That's when you press up towards the top. When you get more towards the middle, that pretty much goes away because it's instant click, but it's more towards the front. So if you grip your mouse towards the front, you're definitely gonna feel that little bit of bounce right there. Again, as far as my grip, I'm kind of relaxed clawing. Every now and then I will rest it down right there, but then I'm pressing it kind of like here towards the middle of my pointer into the middle. So I don't feel that flex. Plus I use the Razer Death Adder, which has the exact same issue, but I don't notice it. But out of the gate, yes, I will say the Logitech buttons are a little bit snappier. You don't feel much give. They're kind of pressed, and that's what you get. Now, that's the absolute opposite when we come over to the side buttons. The Logitech, even the Superlight 2 or the original Superlight, their side buttons just, gosh, they suck. They just do. They're mushy. They feel like a controller button. That's exactly what they feel like, a PlayStation controller, but with a click in there, you know? And they go into the shell. I'm not a fan of them. Coming over here to the Razer Viper, my gosh, these are perfect. You got that gap in there. They don't really flow with the shell, kind of like the Superlight over here where they're kind of rounded off. You got that bump, bam, you know your buttons right there, that separation, very crispy. Love the side buttons on this. Do not like them over here on this. Now coming up to the scroll wheel. The scroll wheel is a little bit firmer on the Logitech. Not saying it's loose over here on the Razer, but you can tell the Logitech one is a little bit firmer, and it's also raised out a good amount more. So me being someone that likes going to my scroll wheel, just slowing or sloping right up to it, I can do that over here on the Razer. I love how Razer does that in a lot of their mice. Coming over here to the Logitech, it's kind of like a speed bump. Boom, I hit it. So I gotta lift my finger up. Again, that's gonna depend person to person. Me personally, I like being able to just flow my finger over it. Now, as far as the glide of both of these mice, I am using the High Ground Black Ice Performance. Watch my mousepad video, and if you haven't tried this mousepad out, trust me and try it. It's an underdog. I don't know why not many more people are covering it. It is such a good mousepad. Why more people probably aren't covering it, because you expect like a cosmetic mousepad from High Ground, but wow, this is like, it's nice and easy on the skin for being a hybrid pad. Anyways, we're not talking about mouse pads, right? We're talking about the glide test of these two mice. And as you notice on the bottom, they both have those big, chunky, Zowie-esque type feet. The Logitech one, again, you can remove this or have the puck back there without a foot on it. I like mine bigger like this because they just feel balanced and natural across it. And that's the result you get with both of these mice. Again, I don't feel any drag on the front or the back. It just feels really nice. And I get the same bit over here with the Logitech one. Again, it's just nice and balanced. I get that Zowie feel with both of them. Now, as far as specs on both of these mice, quite similar, but also quite different. Again, if you go with the Superlight 2, you get the optical switches. As far as battery life, they're both rated for 95 hours at 1000 polling rate. Of course, that's going to go down and lower per the polling rate you set at. With the Logitech Superlight 2, you can now set it to 4K. As far as sensor tracking performance and stability, they are both absolutely spot on. So is the new Razer Viper V3 Pro the Logitech G Pro Superlight killer? I don't think so. I really don't. They feel like different mice for sure. The one thing I have always stated about the Logitech G Pro Superlight, it is such a safe mouse. If you got a small hand, medium hand, large hand, I feel like you can get down with the Superlight. That's why it's so popular. So many pros use it, so many people praise it. It is just a safe mouse. Does it need improvements and updating, even compared to this new one or the Superlight 2? Yes, it does. The side buttons, and I can't stand the 1 and 2 on the new one. So it's kind of like loss for me, you know? But coming over here to the Viper, it is clear as day bigger in the hand. Like just going 1 to 1, like you feel it, no questions asked. It's wider. This is a lot smaller, so if you dance around, play a lot of Fortnite, flicking and dipping, maybe you're going to get down with the Superlight a whole lot more. When I come to the Viper, I will take this all day long because it feels bigger as far as that width. You all know I like plump mice, ergo mice with a hump, and you have more of that over here on the Superlight, but it's so small that I feel like I'm just in here pinching the mouse, which is something I don't like. Coming over here to the Viper, even though it doesn't have such a dramatic hump like the Logitech, I can just get down with it because, again, my fingers aren't pinched into the mouse. So my personal pick is, yes, the Viper, but no, I still don't think it's the Logitech G Pro Superlight killer. But I will say Logitech needs to refresh the Superlight, even though the Superlight 2, especially with Razer coming out with this stuff right now, it's just putting Logitech as a second thought back here, kind of like we saw with their recent keyboards. It's like, yo, Logitech, you need to catch up with the times.